Dark Souls. I bet your boy or girl balls tensed up a little bit hearing these words. And if you grew up catching Pokemon and cleaning up Delfino Plaza like I did, the reputation of the series alone can be an especially intimidating thing. Masterful level design, unforgiving boss battles, detailed, complicated lore, all core aspects of these games that so many people miss because of one overarching theme: difficulty. Which was exactly the case for me. I was always so fascinated by the Souls games. They were always right there, but I never played them. Mainly because I was a big bitch, but also because I felt like it was a big leap to make for a Nintendo kid like me. But then, during the 9th generation of video game consoles, one announcement immediately transformed my originally dry pants into a yucky wet mess.
That which commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance.
All of my negative perceptions were dismantled about an hour into my first playthrough, and I ended up experiencing firsthand how I can discover some of my favorite things just by giving something I assumed I wouldn't like a shot, like picking my nose for example. But I started to think, where did this all start? Demon Souls. FromSoftware's first Soulsborne, Kiro, Ring release that eventually ended up sparking a revolution across the entire medium, introducing so many unique concepts that an entire subgenre was born as a result, after originally being deemed a failure and just barely squeaking out of development. Then this guy came in, worked a little magic, you know the story. But here's what you don't know. I loved Demon Souls. I'd give Miyazaki himself a mwah, respectful kiss on the cheek because as incredible as Elden Ring was, I feel like this was the game that really unlocked the genre as a whole for me. So I'm going to take the next, 15 minutes to talk incoherently about why I enjoyed this game so much. One of the most interesting things about Demon Souls' approach to storytelling is that it conveys its story in two completely distinct ways. Everyone knows at this point that the Souls games have rich, interconnected lores told to the player in the most vague possible ways, almost exclusively found through the descriptions of the items you find and the places you explore. And Demon Souls is no exception. The problem is, this was much more reading than I was capable of executing, so I went through my entire first playthrough having effectively no idea what was going on. I eventually decided to learn how to read with my ears, and invest myself in the lore by, and filled in the blanks, listening to people much smarter and more verbose than me. And this gave me such a refreshed sense of appreciation for all the aspects that make up this game's story and world. It goes a little something like this. On the first day of, time, man, and also womankind were given souls, enabling the people to influence the world around them through magic known as soul arts, which they immediately took way too much advantage of, creating the need to introduce a new entity to balance humanity's misuse of this power literally a day later. Demons, the Control Z of the universe. More specifically, the old one, the original demon, with an enormous Alaskan bullworm-like appearance which began to cover the land of Boletaria in an ethereal fog, raising an army of demons whose only goal is to seek out and consume human souls. Skipping a few points, some time passes, and it's not looking great for humanity, so they call in a hero, your boy, to come in and put a stop to things once and for all, after spending about 40 minutes in the character creator, of course. Once you face the demon vanguard and lose just by a hair, you awaken the Nexus, a temple which seals the old one and serves as the game's hub, a really cool one, where you learn that your soul has been bound until the demons are destroyed, and sent back to their rooms without dinner. In a nutshell, demons are bad and it's your job to stop them. Simple enough, but what had an immediate impact on me was less so the retroactive lore that I learned from YouTube, and much more so the story told by the world itself, exhibited through one of the most stunning, beautiful games I've ever played. There is an absolutely cock-hardening level of inventiveness and care put into each of the 5 areas you explore. The Boletarian Palace is this breathtaking, towering structure full of soul-starved soldiers and these annoying goddamn dragons, littered with clever shortcuts and incredible views. The Stonefang Tunnel is this winding network of, tunnels, overflowing with lava and miners, and also these firebugs that take forever to kill. Then you got the Shrine of Storms, plagued by never-ending rain, and also these really spooky ghosts, culminating in a forest of monoliths, erected in worship of the archdemon that's found there. And the Valley of Defilement is a fucking piece of shit level, literally the asshole of Demon Souls. You're not supposed to have fun in this area. It's not supposed to be the spectacular, interesting level because it's designed for you to hate it. You're supposed to feel desperate and hopeless as you slog your way through, because the fun isn't in the level itself. It's in the sense of accomplishment and relief when you finally cheese the boss in any way possible so you never have to come back here again. Demon's Souls' world is unfriendly, hostile, and it never lets up on you because it's up to you to continuously overcome the challenges it presents. And when you finally find those brief moments where you can escape the danger and have a moment to catch your breath, to take some reprieve in the safety of the Nexus, these are the moments where the beauty of the world really shines. Until you take a single step and... yep, bad game. Atmosphere. Unless you have a PhD from Yale and are able to understand all the lore by reading it, the atmosphere which Demon's Souls is able to meticulously craft is what will drive your experience, and it's done so insanely well. Look deeper into this 46-second elevator ride to Alant, and you'll notice that it's operated by dredgelings enslaved by the king. These dudes on this ledge don't even notice you because they're too busy praying to Maiden Astraea. There are so many instances where you exist in a world full of subtle details that actively rejects and ignores you, but in my opinion, the concept of atmosphere is strongest in the Tower of Latria. First of all, can we talk about how cool the design of this world is? I mean, it transitions from this deranged, twisted prison full of tortured corpses and like wizard Squidwards patrolling the halls, with the ominous haunting vocals in the background, to these towering did I seriously write towering towers? To these, big towers surrounded by fog, hiding a massive heart-shaped meatball that's actually the end result of the old monk's experiments in creating hybrids, like the human-faced centipedes you encounter at the bottom of the level, and also the dumbass man-eaters you fight later on. A lot of Lovecraftian stuff going on here, and the lore is actually wild. You should seriously look it up. I had to equip my maximum strength diapers the first time I went through this level. Honestly, it's insane just how much emotion this game can make you feel simply through its atmosphere alone. I know that even if I die, I can restart the level and farm back any lost souls later on. It's a video game, but I still found myself walking around at the slowest possible speed, peeking around every corner like Luigi when he won a free mansion giveaway. Without even realizing it, I end up playing this game as though I myself actually exist within it, which says so much more about its unparalleled immersion and my own unyieldingly embarrassing nerdiness than I ever could. This is all without even mentioning the game's striking sound design. Almost everything you hear while playing this game is exactly what you would hear naturally if you existed in the world. The prisoners screaming in madness and pain, the reverberating heartbeat in the tower, the sound of my controller being finger blasted as I fight this group of knights. There's some great music in this game's soundtrack for sure. Maiden Astraea's theme was beautiful but tragic, Old King Alant's theme was triumphant and imposing. But although this might make Mario and Zelda fans like me pretty sad, the emphasis on the sounds versus the soundtrack made for an exponentially more immersive and believable experience. Alright, you get it. Here's what I didn't like. The characters. Kinda suck asshole. I feel like I was just never given any reason to care about any of them. And believe me, I went through every single interaction and questline I could. Ostrava just kept getting his wiener jerked by enemies all the time. These guys were just there to trade me magic for a couple of trophies. Patches was a dickhead. Stockpile Thomas was a really nice guy actually. My favorite was the Maiden in Black though. I like how she just kinda hung out. But they all felt like they were only there just to populate the Nexus. That being said though, every other aspect of the game was so refined that this teeny tiny little puny issue really didn't have any effect on the way I feel about it overall. So, let's talk about the game. Demon's Souls is FromSoft's first action RPG under the Souls umbrella, so by nature it's a very experimental game. You're going to see mechanics that have gone on to define the genre, and others that were thrown out faster than me when I go for a $1 LIT world record at Applebee's. There are definitely some winners and losers here, but the first thing that stood out to me was the game's approach to progression. Demon's Souls deviated from the linear experience of future games. Not that I would know or anything. Letting you complete the various levels across the 5 Archstones in any order once you finish the first one. The game gives you choice, so if you run into Flame Lurker as your 4th boss following the levels consecutively and get your asshole rinsed like I did, you can move on to a different one and come back once you're more experienced. If you're a big goo goo gaga baby, that is. This concept of choice is a really thick W for Demon's Souls, because you can have a completely different experience than someone else playing the same exact game. One of the main reasons I think there's such a flourishing community behind it. You have the ability to design your character in a really wide variety of ways. choosing from a surprisingly robust catalog of weapons and playstyles which all come with unique strengths and weaknesses. These playstyles are pretty much boiled down to investing in strength versus magic. Close range, all-out melee combat, getting right up in the enemy's face and using the literal hair on your chest to deal damage, or resorting to pussy pew-pew magic and playing the game on easy mode. Which I did. I did a fair amount of lurking across the Demon Souls communities as I was playing, and realized that anyone who chooses the Royal class is kinda clowned on, a lot, because Jesus Christ, magic really is broken in this game. There are some things this remake does so well. The quality of life, the unchallenged realism in the world's design, but Bluepoint really stayed as far away from the game's mechanical balance as possible, really making it feel like a game made in 2009. 100%ing this game means completing multiple playthroughs, and magic is really the most effective way to do this because it gets pretty unfun pretty fast. But I didn't want to hate myself more than I already do, so I went with a sword magic combo, fooling around a bit close range until it was time to tactically retreat and let my soul arrows sing. The combat is a mix of precision and timing, constantly challenging you to understand each enemy's unique movesets and figure out ways to exploit them. I know, this is what the series is most known for, but for someone just getting into it, it really can't be compared to any other games. There is so much depth to each and every interaction, whether it's developing strategies to defeat groups of enemies, understanding the unique mechanics behind the different boss fights, getting bombarded by pussy archers outside of your range. Each area will put you in distinct situations that force you to get better at adapting and reacting. Demon Souls bosses are, in my opinion, a wildly mixed bag. It's like running into a new stand user in an episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I never knew what I was going to get when I entered a new area. You fight a colossal knight, a big spider, a pretty lady, 2 of them actually. This guy is called the Penetrator. Design-wise, I think they're all amazing. Like, look at the Adjudicator. Yes, he's one of the easiest bosses in the game, but you have this enormous fat guy swinging a gigantic meat cleaver and also his titties around all over the place, which are pierced, with a tongue that reaches like 3 or 4 stories high, while his head is actually a bird. Who comes up with this stuff? What's sad though is that way too many of these fights effectively end up just being gimmicks. The Storm King is awesome, an impossibly big monster you fight with a legendary weapon in an arena unrivaled in ambience and scale, but all you have to do is hide in this corner and hit R1 a few times. The old hero is cool until you realize he's blind, and you can just throw in a thief ring to beat him for free. And this is kinda how a lot of the fights go. The Dragon God is probably the best example of this, but I actually had a lot of fun during this fight. Running into the arena and getting instantly vaporized by just a raw punch had an impact on me, which added a unique feeling of urgency and weight to sneaking around because I knew the consequence of screwing up. This tense, stressful atmosphere created by the novel idea of a stealth boss fight was really exciting. The first time. I haven't played a lot of Souls games. 2, to be exact, but I feel like a boss battle doesn't have to be overly difficult or complex to be fun. What's important is how it makes you feel as a whole, so I respect Demon Souls' experimentation with different types of fights. But the biggest flaw of gimmicks is that they lose their memorability once you've experienced them. And since so many bosses rely on this, the game definitely does get a little stinky. Because in the same world, you have the goddamn Flame Lurker. This boss was fucking insane. I got shit on more times than a gas station toilet, wielding my little magic wand while also getting my hands dirty from time to time with some melee. It took my full focus, balls hard, almost the entire time to finally get through this fight after like 12 attempts. And it was an absolutely incredible moment. This feeling of achievement that FromSoft put so much care into creating really speaks for itself as to why these bosses are so addictingly fun. As long as you don't ever die. Not to exaggerate, but I feel like the developers came down with a case of big stupid fucking idiot disease on the day they were having the backtracking meeting. Some of the routes back to the bosses had me wishing harm upon women and children. I became temporarily racist and misogynistic. Temporarily. Running through the entire level, just to get farmed by a boss I'm still learning how to fight, really brought out the worst in me. Demon Souls is not an easy game. It doesn't care that you have to navigate through narrow paths full of Halloween monsters or entire goddamn swamps if you die at any point, because in a world where every single character and item description warns you of its oppressive, dangerous nature, it makes sense for the gameplay to match that. I hate the backtracking, a lot, but this frustration enabled me to relate directly to my character, making the experience so much more immersive than a typical game. And I think this feeling captures exactly what makes Demon Souls and the rest of the series so special for so many people. 100%ing it, on the other hand, sucks. Having the game be difficult was I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Having the game be difficult was never the goal. What we set out to do was strictly to provide a sense of accomplishment. This was Miyazaki's response when asked about his focus on Demon Souls' difficulty during development. And it's also a complete lie if you're going for 100%, because there are so many strange and unnecessarily complicated mechanics that can nuke entire runs, which the game doesn't even tell you about. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. The amount of cum that comes out of my balls when I get a platinum trophy is a little outrageous. In fact, it can be overwhelming. But despite this, for new players like me, it is absolutely not worth completing this game. Studying its quirks and coming up with a game plan is necessary to do this in a reasonable amount of time, which takes so much fun and excitement away from experiencing it blind. There are 37 trophies which will require at minimum 1.5 playthroughs of the game, assuming you save scum some of the events like a wimp, and 2.5 playthroughs if you play like a man. 2 of these trophies require online, so you're going to be paying at least $10 in addition to the mental stress you accumulate, and the rest are broken up by defeating bosses, finding collectibles, completing challenges under certain conditions, and some other random shit. Go forth, create your character, choose your overpowered class, and start farming some demons. One issue though, tendency. This is one of those experimental and quirky mechanics I mentioned earlier, and is easily the most strict aspect of the game. A tendency is an inclination towards something, and in the context of this game, both the world and your character can be inclined towards what's known as white or black tendency, fundamentally changing certain aspects of the game and unlocking unique events once you reach the maximum threshold of either side. Tendency is manipulated through your actions, and what's really interesting about this system is that the consequences are kind of realistic when you think from the perspective of your character. If you die in a world, that world's tendency shifts towards a darker shade of black, skewing your perception of it as more threatening, which is then physically reflected by the enemies becoming stronger. If you defeat a boss, tendency lightens, and the world, which is now perceived to be less threatening, actually becomes so. It's also very stupid. The problem is that you need to reach the extreme or pure levels of both to complete this game, and a single mistake will almost always fuck up your entire playthrough. There are only so many bosses to defeat in each world, and it is insanely easy to blast into a level only to immediately die and shift closer to black. Can we talk about how absurd of a mechanic this is? The game gets harder the more you die, and it has sold 1.4 million copies. The good news is that this only applies while you're in body form, so you can jump off the ledge in the Nexus like a goofball and enter each world in soul form to maintain your world tendency. But this heinous, vile, evil man introduced another winner mechanic. The fact that whenever you're in soul form, you only have access to half of your health, which will be the case for pretty much the entire stupid idiot game. So, with all that out of the way, I played through each world collecting as many trophies, items, and souls as possible, while flirting with the Maiden in Black and also the Nexus's floor every so often, and maintaining pure white world tendency in each of them. Some of the trophies were actually pretty fun, adding unique conditions that had to be met during certain boss battles like the dumbass Tower Knight Archer trophy, encouraging exploration through the magical world for collectibles, all while getting used to the sadness of my health bar never being at full. Various events will pop up when you enter Pure White, most of which involve new NPCs that appear in each world, like this Japanese guy who immediately attacks you when you find his katana for him. And the same can be said about Pure Black, but just like exponentially harder. Black tendency spawns phantom versions of these NPCs which you must defeat, and you'll also start to find these primeval demons in each world, baby demons, born from a stronger demonic presence in the world that drop colorless souls used for gaining spells and miracles along with the boss souls. You can also use this chance to farm a gold coin and a pure blade stone for those last couple rings, because item drop odds are highest in Pure Black, but good luck with that. As you defeat these phantom NPCs, your character tendency will start to shift towards white, and once that icon is nice and shiny, you can talk to the Monumental for a reward. Shifting it the opposite way by hunting down other players, or, if you suck at PvP like me, defenseless merchant NPCs will unlock a new character on the second floor of the Nexus, who sweet talks you into going on a bit of a rampage, so I recommend doing this at the very end of your playthrough if you want to be able to buy or attune magic. Great! Time to finish the game. Defeating Old King Allant in 1-4 moves the story into its finale, where you jump down below the Nexus holding hands with my girlfriend and finally confront the final boss. This was such a cool moment, an exciting culmination of everything the game has thrown at you up to this point, staring the old one right in the face. Ugh. Disappointing final bosses aside, you're left with a choice. Refusing the old one's power, leaving the area while the maiden lulls it back into its slumber, or killing her for a shiny gold trophy and an all-you-can-eat buffet of souls. Tough choice. You'll immediately enter New Game Plus with all your stats, equipment, and items, and from here, you can play as much as you want to unlock the rest of the achievements, likely being a few leftover spells and miracles, and any one-time challenges you missed along the way, which is where the magic build really came through because you can just... We're not finished yet though, because Bluepoint added one more super duper secret outside of the Platinum that is somehow even more frustrating than everything else up to this point. Ceramic coins. A brand new collectible which can only be found by destroying specific breakable objects during pure white or black tendency, in a brand new mode called Fractured World. An option enabled by speaking to the statue in the Nexus, which essentially mirrors the overworld, and also your character horizontally, providing a refreshing and disorienting experience if you want something new. The history here is actually pretty interesting. It was pretty much one big meme that Bluepoint threw in and didn't tell anyone about, sending the Souls community into a frenzy when it was first discovered. But it's also so annoying because making one mistake will extend your playthrough by hours. There are a total of 13 ceramic coins you can find per playthrough, 7 in pure white and 6 in pure black, scattered across all 5 worlds. Collecting 26 of these coins lets you trade them with an NPC named Sparkly the Crow in World 4. Netting you a rusted key in return, allowing you to unlock the secret door behind an invisible wall, behind some breakable objects, down an unassuming alley in 1-3, and giving you access to a brand new area with an interesting reward. The Penetrator's Armor Set, an insanely cool set, only obtainable in the remake, that I cannot use because I'm not a strength build. Yes, you did the math right. You'll need at least 2 playthroughs if you want this armor, but realistically more when you inevitably screw up and miss one like I did. It is pretty cool though, but this is my biggest problem with 100%ing this game. It is so unnecessarily convoluted to the point where a solid amount of my enjoyment was gone by the end of the run. Final thoughts. I ended up doing 3 full playthroughs over the course of 60-ish hours, with only a handful of deaths, and I can confidently say, even if you've been intimidated by these games like me, or are just interested in general, you should give it a shot. Breathtaking dungeons, really solid boss design, sometimes, diverse and polished combat. Sure, maybe 100%ing it took a toll on my mental health a bit, but the difficulty never made it feel inaccessible, instead making it so much more immersive and fun. Overall, Demon's Souls Remake was an OP experience and definitely the definitive way to play this game. I give it a B+ out of 10, minus points for the backtracking in the goddamn swamp, but these guys are pretty funny.